republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the February 3rd Bryan City Council meeting. It's been tough for a couple of our council members of what I'm going to call council family, if you will. Mary last week lost her father here, passed away, Robert Leatherman, and the week before Lori's mother, Joby Dwyer, also passed. So in respect for them and their families, I'd like to just observe a moment of silence. Thank you. The first agenda item is to approve the minutes of the January 21st, 2020 council meeting.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes. The second agenda item is hearing of public concerns, and for the residents, we've been asking if you could please limit that to 5 minutes. Do you have any? Seeing none, we'll move on. And what? No. Yeah, the charter discussion on number 9 is going to be the charter discussion with the council. That's not where this is the public forum for that. We haven't discussed it. They just, to catch everybody up, they just got the information at the last meeting. They were to review it, read it, and then we were going to discuss it today. So that's for our, and then the next piece is I want to talk to Mr. Long and see if we can schedule whenever it's convenient and appropriate for BPA to also meet and discuss that in another agenda item, I believe. Is that acceptable? Okay.
So are we meeting an executive session, or are we?
No.
Right here?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was confused.
No.
I just wanted to be clear so that if you wanted to come up for public concerns, this was the time to do it. So you may, Mr. Gackle, if you would take the podium, please. I didn't want anyone to not be able to speak that was here.
Yes, I'm Paul Gackle. I just wanted to come and share with the council some ideas that you may not have, not ideas necessarily, but some historical perspective that I had with the BPA over some 30-some years with Spangler Candy Company. I represented Spanglers in a lot of our utility issues. We dealt with them, and I always felt that we were very well handled. I thought it was a very positive thing for the city. I think when I first came to Spanglers, I had worked in the city of Toledo and Defiance quite a bit, and I found that not only the rates were much better here than any of those two areas, but also they seemed like they were a lot more forward-thinking. And so, again, what I've read in the paper, at least, I want to at least come and give you, the council, at least a little bit of a perspective from an industrial user standpoint. I thought it was very positive to have that group focused on just utilities. It really made a big difference for how I dealt with them. So again, I'm just a good experience with that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. The agenda item number 3 is an ordinance accepting the requested annexation of land consisting of 0.509 acres. Mr. Whelan?
Ordinance number 6, 2020. An ordinance accepting the requested annexation of land consisting of .509 acres, more or less, in Section 19 of Pulaski Township, Williams County, Ohio, and classifying the same.
This is the final step in a multi-stage process. Prior to several months ago, you were submitted with some legislation on what services we were going to provide to two different parcels that we were annexing. This is one of the two. This is along Center Street, just out past Eric's Ice Cream. We've got a few islands in town that are still in the township and not actually within the city limits. And there's some advantageous aspects to annex to the city. So this is the final stage. It's been through the commissioners' hearings and the township hearings and whatnot. So we are here tonight to consider accepting the final annexation of this parcel. I think it's 2 lots along Center Street.
A motion to suspend?
I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes. Laura, would you please, so I don't skip you this time, my apologies, please read in the next ordinance or agenda?
Ordinance number 7, 2020. An ordinance accepting the requested annexation of land consisting of 10.33 acres, more or less, in Section 22 of Pulaski Township, Williams County, Ohio, and classifying the same.
This is a chunk of land adjacent to the runway at the Williams County Airport, directly across the street from CE Electronics. They're doing some expansion out there. They acquired some ground a few years ago, I believe it was from the Shankster Farm, and they also agreed, or actually obtained some from the plastic factory. It's out there as well. That was already within the city of Bryan, so this here actually needed annexed, and they had planned on doing it a few years ago, but I believe they forgot to. So at the same time, they decided to annex this parcel, and again, this is owned by the Airport Authority. They're going to be starting some construction out there this summer with a taxiway and whatnot, but for the most part, this parcel is part of what they call the runway protection zone. It's like a 350-foot buffer either side of the tarmac that they don't want any buildings and whatnot on. So this just makes the entire all property is owned by the airport board within the city limits of Bryan. That way, if there's an incident or something, they don't have to decide whether the sheriff does it or the Bryan police handles it or whatnot. So, and I think actually on the agreement for services with this, we weren't providing any services to it because there's really nothing touching it. So, but with that, I would request you approve this as well.
Or a motion to suspend?
So moved.
I'll second.
Rick?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
A motion to approve.
I'll second.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is status change for the Parks Department.
Yes, council, you've been presented with a status change for our part-time preschool worker. When you passed your ordinance 2 weeks ago, raising increases for parks, she was not within the range, so this is just simply moving her to follow that ordinance.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Rick?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chief Chappell?
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm up here for 2 of them. You got 2 of them in your packet. Corey Nichols and Cliff Weigel. I'm requesting that both of them be put on the reserves. Corey and Cliff are former officers here in the city of Bryan. Cliff just recently retired. Corey left us a couple years ago and has decided he'd like to get his certification back and be on our reserves.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And then I need a status change. Jesse Barrera, in conjunction with the union contract, has completed his 3 years of service. On February 7th, in accordance with the contract, we'd like to move him up to the 3-year step.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Rick?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Presentation of annual reports. Mr. Wheeling?
Sorry.
I got it. I hit the play button. We're good. Okay. Annual report for this year. Last year was quite busy. My annual report does not necessarily follow along with the packet that you have there. I really dislike going to seminars when I'm scrolling through and everybody's trying to read through and keep up. So I jumped all around and just did my own thing there. So that way you don't necessarily need to follow along, and I'll just do it pretty quick. But the cover here, the main thing we were excited about was Johnson Drive. You know, obviously I'll delve into that a little bit later with construction cost. And it's kind of tough to see in the picture there, the next picture on the right, but the fountain, that picture was taken at 5:20 a.m. Now you're probably wondering, what were we doing at 5:20 a.m. in town? Well, my construction inspector, it was the day they were milling the asphalt around the square, or actually on High Street and Main Street there, right in front of, around the courthouse itself. So they wanted to do it early in the morning when there was no traffic. So we got a picture of that construction crew actually working then. But Patrick saw the fountain like that, and he said, that's a beautiful picture. So he went ahead and grabbed it. But it's just ironic that it's 5:20. So we'll start. So you got my team here in the office. Andrew Waterston, zoning administrator. Don Klein takes care of mapping. Patrick does inspections. Scott takes care of the traffic signals, and Melanie takes care of everything else for us. So we got a real good team, work together. I don't know what we do if we were missing any of them. So we'll start with the projects. ODOT Main Street paving, that's been a long drawn out process. Grant was awarded in 2017. It was bid the fall of 2018. We actually had to bid it twice because we didn't have any bidders the first time due to the timing on it. Construction actually started March of 19 and was completed in July of 19. We actually had to kind of work around the Jubilee a little bit, but we actually got the paving done where we needed to, like was what was anticipated. And the pictures there, the lower left one, that's actually like a diamond mill that it cuts a circle around a manhole casting. So they basically pave over the castings, come back later and cut a perfect circle around them, adjust them up with concrete. So that's actually a nice big cutter and just makes it a lot easier than using the old jackhammer and whatnot. And then in the lower right there, that's actually right in downtown at Main and High, shortly after the 5:20 picture was taken as well at the courthouse. So just much easier to do work when the traffic was down a little bit. We've done a project this summer in the South Industrial Park, Stormwater. As you recall, the lower left picture, there's a small blue circle. That's the existing retention basin. We had widened the basin out, and what it actually did is we made the basin larger, which could lower the flood elevation out there. Unfortunately, when one of the factories did their design out there, their truck docks, the low elevation of the truck dock was 2 feet below the flood elevation in the retention basin. So every time we get a lot of rain, it would back up in their truck docks. So we decided that's a no-fly zone. It's in the runway protection zone. We can't build there anyways, so we opted to go ahead and put a retention basin in. So $234,000 cost, definitely well worth it. 2019 Johnson Drive project, there's a picture of the curb going in. Both sides, and the lower right one is actually the day we were getting ready to pave. The paving machine's in there. And then, of course, former Mayor Doug standing proudly by his sign out there with Johnson Drive. He always told me if I needed any extra pictures, I think he was out there about every day taking pictures throughout the whole thing. And he's got a neat little book he needs to show me sometime with the complete construction phase. So that was summer of 2019, $746,000 bid amount, and we actually run water and storm sewer down there. Did not run sanitary down the street because that project is served from Brunicardi Way. That was inspected and bid by the engineering department, and utilities had their inspectors out there as well when the water line was put in. 2019 asphalt program, Gherkin paving, $675,000 cost. The largest part was East South Street, Starks Meadowbrook area, and we had done rehab on the Eagles parking lot. So just, I always like seeing the big green semis in town because we're getting some asphalt put down. So Bavarian Lane test strip. This is something we've been toying with for a few years. I know Mary, you're familiar with this area, and Mr. Salisbury, you're familiar with this area. Starks Meadowbrook area, when it was built, the stone subgrade under the asphalt it has a lot of clay in the stone, and we'll pave the street, and 2 years later the street breaks up. Mm-hmm. So we're doing engineers, we don't know everything. We sometimes have to do trial and error. So we're trying to test strip in here. We did one section there, $49,000 worth of cost, where we removed all the asphalt and stone that was in there, compacted the subgrade, put some storm tile, like farm drainage basically, underneath the stone so the water could actually get over there and dry itself out. Put some filter fabric in, which is over here on the right side, That's supposed to keep the stone and the clay from intermingling with each other. And what we did is basically did a test strip. I'm going to do another test strip this spring or early summer adjacent to that with a slightly different technique, with a different type of mesh and geomembrane, and we're going to monitor it for a year or two and see how they survive the winter, see how they survive the summer, see how they survive traffic, and try and decide what's best to do before we spend $1 million in the neighborhood there trying to rehab everything and have it fail again. So it's tough in that neighborhood, and I know, Mr. Salisbury, you can agree. We pave it, 2 years later, it breaks up. But we'll get to the bottom of it sooner or later, but I guess engineering isn't always an exact science. Sometimes you have to trial and error, and we'll figure it out. Pavement marking program, that's a yearly thing we do. These are the same pictures I had in there last year, but it was bid in March of 2019, $88,000 cost. And I know, Jim, you might be interested in the paint system there. It's usually a 3-part system. You lay paint down, you lay an epoxy, and then you lay the glass beads on top of it. And it's like a thermoplastic blend there. That'll last us about 10 years. Once that's done, we lose the retroreflectivity in it and then just have to use the middle gun and the last gun where we just put the paint down and the glass beads on it. But really slick process. Project financing this year. This is just general money. Typically my budget out of the 0.5% is between 1.5, 1.8 million, but last year we spent 3.2, almost $3.3 million. Quite proud of everything we got done. I know Patrick, he was awful busy last summer doing construction inspection, but that's basically a summary of the projects there. So just under 3.3 million. And on the right side in the red is, I'll say, grant funds or other funds that weren't necessarily from the 0.5%. Like the North Park, we got 252,000 of grant funds from, 252,000 came from ODOT. And actually, we had another 300,000 from CDBG in there. So it's actually incorrect in there. It's actually 300,000 more on the total project. 300,000 for paving. That wasn't really a grant, but it's actually through the state gas tax. So it's not necessarily out of our budget, but I consider it, free money per se, because it's not out of our 0.5%. And the Main Street, we received 1.2 million from ODOT for that. So actually, we were over $2 million in grant funds last year total for $3.2 million total worth of projects. So real happy about that, real proud about that. It's not going to happen every year. We were real fortunate last year, but we try to do what we can to try and stretch our dollars, and grant funds is the way to go. Safety projects, every year we try and tackle 1 or 2 of those. We put a solar-powered crosswalk light up on Center Street at the rec park. There was a shared project with BMU Electric and our office. We split the cost of it. The electric fund paid for half and we paid for half. They do it for like a community type project. We're saving electricity and so forth. So we jointly bought those, and Scott and I, actually Scott installed most of it. I helped him put the poles up and do a little wiring, but for the most part we installed them with our forces. So over the years we've been whittling away at the school zone lights that weren't solar powered. We'd switch them over to solar and get rid of some wiring and whatnot. So of course now we're down to the ones at St. Pat School are 12 years old and they need to be replaced. The solar panels are going bad and they won't charge anymore, and so it's time to start over again, but that's okay. Other tasks, like I said, we take care of traffic control devices. We assist BMU with bidding and design of some of their projects. We assist the wastewater and parks if they have a capital project. I assist the street department if needed, and we have zoning and building department in-house. 2020 goals, obviously we're always going to try and apply for more grants with Ohio Public Works. Look for joint water and pavement projects. Ohio Public Works is kind of interesting. Water gets higher priority points because they consider that more critical. They rank that higher than sanitary sewer, even though your sewer could be leaking. They want the water to stay clean. So a lot of times I'll try and piggyback on BMU, and we'll do a joint project together. We done it a few years ago with Toy Street and East Wilson, and then here just this year, we're going to be doing one on South William Street as well, where we received Ohio Public Works to do some paving and water line replacement. So it's good that we can work together there and stretch our money. CDBG we try and do every year, and of course obviously we're going to develop and refine the Cub Technician program, which like I said, it was approved through my budget for a cleanup Bryan Tech, and we're in the interview phase right now, and hopefully in a couple weeks we'll come here with a recommendation for a hire on that. So it's going to be a kind of a learning curve, trying to figure out exactly, we know what we want to do, but to get the steps in there to get everything hammered out right, we'll work through it. Side notes, I try and show this about every year because I always have complaints. This is the intersection of South Street and South Main. Circle K is in the lower right. I have people call and complain all the time, the traffic light's not changing, the traffic light's not changing. Well, that red arrow is lined up there at a stop bar, and there's a sign next to it that says, stop here to actuate the signal. If you go past that bar, it's not gonna work. So, all over town, I'd say 70% of the traffic signals only trip if you pull up and stop behind the white bar. If you go past the white bar, it's not gonna cycle and you're gonna be sitting there. So, it's just public service, if you're ever sitting there and you're waiting, look and see where you're at. If you're past the white bar, sit there until somebody pulls up behind you, because you're not going anywhere. And if you are sitting behind the white bar and it doesn't change, call the police department and they'll get a hold of us and we'll take care of it, because we do have problems. But for the most part, just pay attention to where the white bars are and try and park behind them. I guess in closing, I can say I took that picture in the lower right last summer with all the rain we had. Road was closed and the water was high. And I've been joking with the mayor, even last year, we wanted to build a dummy like that in the upper left corner out of traffic barrels and cones. And we've got enough junk ones laying around, we might try and do it just as kind of a joke. But hopefully Bryan will still be the land of 1,000 traffic cones this summer. We got a lot of work planned this year, as you guys noticed a couple weeks ago. So, but just be patient, give the workers time, and we're doing what we can to make the city better. So I don't know if you have any questions, but just try and be brief.
The turn area there at Circle K, has that been successful? Is that doing what we've been anticipating?
Other than right there, where the semis go north and make the corner, even though they have ample room to swing around, sometimes there's still a car that pulled ahead and the semi can't make the corner and he still runs over a little bit, runs off the curb there and runs in the grass a little bit. So we talked about filling in concrete in that area between the sidewalk and the curb, just so we don't have continuous rutting there, but you're gonna have to put 12 inches of concrete in, and we joked about putting big steel posts in there because they're gonna run over the post, but maybe they'll get a flat tire out of it and learn next time. But that's not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to try and widen the radius out there a little bit more. But the problem is the traffic signal is right at the right of way. That's just such a narrow street right of way through there that we really don't have the room to widen out the radius like we should. So we expanded the pavement to the north and pulled the stop bar back to the back so the trucks can make the turn if they swing wide. So in theory, it works as long as the truckers swing wide enough and make it around, but, occasionally it doesn't work out, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Siders, Chief Siders.
There we go. Good evening. Tonight we're going to give you a brief overview of the Fire Department's 2019 report. Last year we had 491 calls for service. That's up 40 from 2018. You can see that of the 491 calls for service, that 37% of our calls do involve medical. 21% are the good intent calls. These are the types of calls that my CO detector's going off or my smoke detector's going off, those types of calls. So it gives you a nice breakdown as to what types of services the fire department's going for. Where do we go? Most of our calls are within the city of Bryan. Last year, 331 of the calls for service were within the city limits of Bryan. And then we break down the other townships that we cover by contract. Average response times in Bryan is 6.89 minutes. And this is from time of dispatch to time of arrival on average of the first fire unit to arrive on the scene. Incidents per month last year, July and August were our busiest months. No special reason for that. Typically, we run 35 to 40 calls each and every month. So for some reason last year, July and August happened to be just a little bit busier for us. Day of the week, We're starting to see a trend where Thursday is now becoming our busiest day of the week. It used to be Tuesday years ago, and now we've seen a switch to where now we're seeing Thursday is becoming more of our busy time of the week. Time of day, our average is holding right out there. We start in at about 6 a.m. and we peak out somewhere around 2 in the afternoon, and we stay pretty well busy between 2 and 6 p.m. when we start to fall off again. So we start in at 6, and usually around bedtime's when things start slowing down a little bit for us. So, and then we get a little spike there at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. We get a little spike, but other than that, that's our day. We're broken down into crews. We have 4 crews. We run a crew system, so there's a certain number of firefighters who are on duty every single day from the volunteer staff after 6 p.m. And during the day, we run with a full-time staff of 4 firefighters, myself, the assistant chief, and training officer, training captain. So you can see during the day, the on-duty staff, last year there was 124 calls that happened between that 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. time frame. Crew 1 was really busy last year. They had 102 calls for service, so they were extremely busy. Property value last year, we like to look at property saved instead of property lost, and last year we were able to save almost $2 million worth of property. We look at property being saved as that ability to save someone's business, save someone from not going out of business, because typically if a business has a high loss, we found, and it's nationwide, that typically businesses don't come back after a high loss. So we like to think that we do a really good job in saving property and keeping businesses going. Our Fire Prevention Bureau is really charged with that, because we go around and do fire extinguisher programs for a lot of the businesses in town. We do factories, the nursing homes, a lot of the smaller businesses in town. Of course, we do school programs. We're in the schools, pre-K through 4. We have a lot of tours. Usually we start in about September, and we'll take a small break somewhere around the Thanksgiving time frame, and we'll start back up about March again, and we'll have a constant flow of visitors coming to see us between March and the end of the school year. So we get our message out about being safe and smoke detectors and things like that to the kids and to the general businesses as well. Training, we do a lot of training. I think last year there was over 1,000 hours of training. Excuse me. I think last year the average was somewhere around 143 hours per firefighter. So that's a lot of training per person. So we do a lot of training. I like to think that our department's probably one of the best trained fire departments around, and we do offer some good training. We also have the training academy. We are licensed by the state of Ohio to offer firefighter training, so we do that on a regular basis as well. Special events, we like to get out in the community. Again, that helps us get our message out to the community in regards to fire prevention. We're always out to the Halloween party. When we have that out at the ice rink, we hand out bags, and the kids really like those flashing lights that they can use when they go out on trick or treat then. And inside the bag, there's always some fire prevention material for mom and dad to take a look at as you're looking through the candy and trying to find what it is that you like. So we like to give that information out as well. And of course, we're there for the fireworks, the fly-in breakfasts, and things like that. So we're out there in the community. We're there to serve, and we're dedicated to the service. Of course, we need help. Right now, there are 26 members on the department. We could really use about another 10 to 12 more people. That would be a great shot in the arm for us. It's not easy. It's a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of time away. But it is rewarding to be able to help your fellow man. So if you're interested, give us a call, stop by, hop out on the internet, grab an application, fill it out, bring it in, and we'll get you processed. This is the list of the individuals who are currently on the fire department. These are the folks that do the work for you with the fire department. So with that, that's all I had. So questions? If not,
More of a statement than a question. I today heard the Springfield Fire Chief state the same thing that I'm hearing across the state and actually nationally, that people signing up for the volunteer fireman's position is very difficult, and he cited the number one reason is the amount of training. That they come, I can get them, I cannot keep them, because after about 6 months, they go, someone needed to tell me I was gonna be involved in this. Do we tell people kind of up front that too, that
yep, we give them, there's a list that says you have to complete this many hours and for this training, this many hours for this training. And of course, we have a 5-year plan is what we call it. Our probationary manual is basically a 5-year plan of walking these people through the process. We train all of our people to a level 2 firefighter, because that then gives us the better score on our ISO rating, which in turn then helps the insurance premiums in the city. So by having the firefighter 2 trained volunteers helps the city out as a whole. So that's why we train to such a high level, is to gain the benefit on the other side of it.
well, thank you for what you do and the entire fire department.
Thank you.
And Chief, will you correct me if I'm wrong, but the ISO rating is not just for the actual city of Bryan, it's for businesses in Bryan, it's everyone within our fire district gets that discount on their insurance because of the rating.
The rating is there for the insurance companies to decide how they're going to build their rates to charge for insurance. It does help, it is held for the businesses in town, and it's also held for individuals as well. So depending on your classification of ISO rating determines what kind of rate you're going to pay for fire protection.
I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear it was a resident savings too.
Yes, yes it is. And actually, they've started to, a lot of insurance companies have started to push that out into the townships as well. So some of the folks in the townships are also seeing some of those savings.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next agenda item is the charter review discussion that was handed out at the last council meeting for council to review. Since Judy is not here and we're not going to get her input, I'd like to suggest that we not table it. We can discuss because you're prepared, but maybe bring it up again at the next meeting. What's your thoughts?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I think she needs to have an
I
opportunity.
absolutely believe she needs to have an opportunity, and we need to discuss with the BPA. So, but before we do that, maybe we'll just, at the next meeting, discuss it again. So don't feel like this isn't one time. There isn't any one time. You feel like we need to go 3 times, we'll go 3 times. As I just told Dick, you know, when you're ready, let us know. Or you can let the mayor know a time frame, and we can set up a joint meeting and go from there. So what I'd like to do is do a quick, because there's probably a number of people that that don't know some of the evolution. I'm not going to go into a historical perspective at all, just a quick, very quick summary and trying to do it justice. Initially, the ordinance, I think it was 46, 2019, thank you, dealt with the fact that the issue was one of governance, which I continue to ditch. It's not about BMU service or rates, it's about what is the best form of governance for the city of Bryan. And so one of that initial proposal was that the council would just take the role of, and incorporate the role of the BPA and go that route. After listening to, and it was much appreciated and heard, some people's input dealing with you're losing expertise and why don't you give this some time. We did, and put it on pause, gave it some time to give more thought, and one of those thoughts happened to be that, you know, we may want to look at the expertise piece. Therefore, that coupled with, which I didn't mention before, but I will now, one of the things that weighed on me, quite frankly, was and no one brought it up, at least no one brought it up to me, but I didn't feel as though it was fair to also take people that had been voted on to be on a board and not have them end their term. That didn't seem right. So that was part of the thought process also, besides the fact that you're losing expertise, you're also not respecting the terms. And I mean 3 of council terms and 3 of BPA's terms. So that was kind of what went into the rethinking of this. The idea was to look at the objective of city government, what are some of the goals of city government, and that's what I want to kind of discuss here and see if we can kind of come to some kind of consensus, and BPA, you may want to, you know, think about this as it's discussed. But that's kind of how this evolved, and what I'd like to do to start off some of the discussion, of which we will again revisit this in 2 weeks, not to be redundant, but just to overstate that piece. When Judy's here, we can go over this again, so don't feel as though you have a one-shot deal. But one of the things that I'd like to start with is comments, additions, or deletions to the stated objective. Does everyone have that? It's right that whereas the objective of city government should be to represent and serve the public and city employees in the most effective and efficient manner with consistent and clear lines of communication while being accountable and transparent, the following 3 questions are set for each council and BPA member. So my first question is, is there any deletions or additions? Do you think that's the objective of city government? I mean, what's your thoughts?
I think it's a good start.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no gotcha here. There's no gotcha here. These are real questions. I mean, if you have things that can make this better, then that's great. So, all right, so the thought is that it's a good start, but no one is put off. None of us at this point are put off by that objective. It can be improved, is what, perhaps. Sure. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right.
Okay. The other comment or response to the 3 questions: do you believe Bryan's current governance structure can be improved to meet that objective?
I think it should stay the way it is.
So the answer for you
Sorry,
would be
that's
no.
just-
No,
that's
no,
just
there's
how
no
I
sorry.
feel.
That's
I
fine.
mean,
That's okay.
Because before you wanted to dismantle BPA, now you want to merge the BPA with us. I think the BPA, I mean, the utilities does a great job with what they're doing. I hate to see it end. I like to keep it the way it is.
Okay.
And I also want to say, I get tired of reading things on social media and in the Bryan Times when people lump the council all together in this. It's not all together. There's some council people that have a different opinion. My opinion is keep it the way it is. I don't want to change it. And that's exactly how I feel,
No, that's fine.
you know?
Yeah. Well, that's why we're discussing it. Yeah. And, you know, I will kind of get to that in the future. It's not just it's because there's opposing views that we can become better. So I think the issue becomes one of, could the current governance structure be improved? Your response would be not from your perspective.
Right,
Yeah,
correct.
I've got you.
I feel like, and I felt this way from the beginning, that at least on the surface, that we have an extra layer. And not, I guess what I've been looking for, what I've been wanting to hear is, what is the purpose of that extra layer? Because from the way things are structured right now, anything that really is decided upon comes through us anyway. And so, I'm not really understanding the purpose. I'm not saying that it's not there. My position is, I want to understand the purpose of that extra layer. And that goes back to the efficiency of the government. Are we operating the most efficient that we can?
So I'm not trying to, if this is an incorrect summary, y'all need to stop me. Thank you, Mary, for agreeing, because I thought that's what I heard. Rick, are you kind of saying, you're kind of looking at, to answer that question, you believe current governance structure can be improved? Your answer would be yes, to the point of understanding the purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Jim, you don't feel,
I agree with Rick.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Second, what do you believe is the most efficient and effective governing structure to meet the goal of streamlining our local government to be more effective and efficient while maintaining equal area representation and being accountable and transparent through increased, consistent, clear communication with all city departments and the community? Which is why the focus is on governance and not on the BMU. Certain people seem to like to go back to what individuals, me or whoever, said in the past. You can go back as far as you want. You're going to hear me say nothing but good things about BMU. Nothing but good things. And I still do that today. So it's not that issue. The issue of service and rates and how it's been handled, that's not the issue. The issue becomes one of, could it be a better, more efficient governance structure? So the second, oh geez, you both scared me.
Just making sure we're all paying attention.
No, we're all right. So the second question is, do you believe that it's the most efficient and effective governing structure to meet that goal? How would you answer question 2 is the simplest way to answer that.
In my mind, if I go back to question 1, and it is determined that the current structure is not the best structure, then my feeling is, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not sure why we need more than 5 people on council. A maximum of 7, but 5 would, in my mind, would do it. Because I look at the load that we have today, the current size of Bryan and the amount of information that comes across our desks, so to speak, I don't know that it requires additional, especially additional 5 people. I could see 7, but in my mind, 5 would do it, leaving it the size that it currently is.
Am I hearing in there that you disagree that we ought to have at least a year where there's the 10 to allow the people for everyone to allow for their term?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I guess I've got mixed feelings towards that. It would be my
Okay.
my.
As to how it would work, maybe, or?
Just, what is the purpose?
Well, one of the two purposes in my mind, this is a dialogue now.
Right. 2
purposes in my mind, one of which I think we can learn from each other. The second one is, and I'm telling you, I ain't making it up. talk to Joy if you want. The second one is to respect the people's terms. That was, and it's both. It's respecting the experience and respecting the terms. And then let the chips fall where they may as to whoever wants to run, and whoever the people want to vote for, and then go to 7. That was the thought.
Sure. I just don't want to lose the knowledge BPA.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end goal, you know?
So you would, with 2, you would agree, somewhat agree, because somewhat agree with Rick. Rick was a little more hesitant, but you think that this would be a good thing to have that year of 10, to have that experience,
Sure.
and then.
Sure.
Because quite frankly, it can actually end up, I mean, I'm sure people have done the math, I don't mean to talk down or whatever, everyone can do this, but I don't know someone asked me that, what's gonna happen in 2 years? I don't know.
And
I don't know who's gonna run, and I don't know who's gonna vote for whom. It's possible that the current 5 BPA members can be the 5 of the 7 council. I don't know. I mean, and are you okay with that, Bets? I've been asked these questions. Yes. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Well, what if one of them's not you? Right now, I'm good with that. So, if that's helpful, go
I
ahead.
just don't want to lose our BPA members. I mean, they have a lot of knowledge. They have more knowledge than I do about BMU. I'm just afraid that if this call transpires, we may lose that experience, and we can't afford to lose that experience.
But we would keep it for 2
Not if
years.
they don't agree to it and decide not to stay on.
Well,
You know, that
that's
could-
way
yeah,
ahead.
I know,
I haven't
but
heard
I'm
anybody
just-
say
I'm
that.
I'm
We need to
looking
talk
ahead.
with them first.
I'm looking ahead, and I said, I just don't agree with this, because like I said, they run separately than we do. I just
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable with that.
Well, I don't want to jump ahead to that
Yeah.
because we have not had the opportunity, and I don't think it's fair for them.
Right.
We haven't had the opportunity to talk with them. I would have some responses to that if that were the case, but at any rate, I'm getting what I need to get. And thank you, by the way. Third, and if you believe the current governance structure meets that goal of being streamlining, it's local government, et cetera, is more effective and efficient. If you believe the current governance structure meets this goal, do you believe the people of Bryan should have the right to vote on what they believe might be a possible better governance structure? Or should we vote for them? Because it's not a BPA issue, that's us, guys. We're the legislative arm. So if it gets stopped at this point, the people of Bryan won't be able to vote on it.
Again, I look at this, how many times has this subject come up over the years? And, you know, over what span of time? You remember off the top of your head?
Yeah,
But
yes,
has it
I
ever,
do.
what was?
Well, it's the last time that this was broached with some seriousness, and I think Mr. Metz was close with a number of the things that he brought up, was in 1999 and 2000, and before that, it was pretty much 67, 68, but that was a total, that proposal had to do with actually selling BMU, which I have said and will continue to say is absolute nonsense and insanity. But that was part of that 67, 68 proposal. Then there was a 70 and a 72 proposal that dealt with city administrators and different factions. It was different than this proposal. But yes, so what were we at, 68? And then if you wanted to go all the way back, at least according to the history of BMU that I read, you can go back to the early 1900s when it was also a question. So the answer is anywhere from 120 years to the last 50 or so.
And out of all those years, how many times have the people had an opportunity to speak?
I don't think there's been anybody
Through
else that
the-
knows
through
this.
their vote.
I don't believe there's been a vote on that issue of governance change since 72, I don't believe. Does that make any sense to? I don't believe. So it's been like 50, what is that, 48 years? Something like that, 48 or 50 years. And quite frankly, if you think of it, and I've had a couple of people ask me 50 years ago, and they're usually millennials. I mean, even me, I'm going to be 68 soon, and I didn't vote on that in 1968. So there's not too many people that are still around, and so the question becomes one of, do we want to take it to the public to let them vote, to put it maybe where I think you're going, a little more once and for all, let's put this puppy to bed. Kind of, is that where you were
Yeah,
going with it?
we keep resurrecting this
Yes.
topic. And I just feel like we are, well, the people that we represent are the people of the city of Bryan.
Yes.
And this is a pretty big issue. And I think we need to get what we put out to the public right, which is what you have here. We need to massage this to the point where it is the right document. But at the end of the day, I just feel like there's nothing, what are we afraid of taking it to the people and saying, okay, if you want to keep it, let's keep it. If we want to get rid of it, let's get rid of it. But those of us who sit here do not have the power to get rid of the BPA or to keep we can keep BPA, but we can't get rid of BPA. And maybe we don't want to get rid of BPA, but I guess the whole thing comes down to it. The subject has been broached a number of times, and maybe it's time that the people get their opportunity to say, and like you mentioned, put it to bed one last time.
Jim?
I would personally like to see a charter review committee come up, just like 2 to 3 month. Leaders, let's talk about it. Let's structure it. You know how it would look.
Okay,
But that's really my thought.
okay.
And that may not be a bad idea,
Mm-hmm.
and to have, I don't know, maybe have people who are not on BPA and council be the ones that
Oh,
are.
no, that would have to be, remember, that is what
Oh,
happened.
that, okay.
That
That's what
happened in 99. In 99, there was some people from BPA, some people on the, from council, and that didn't go real well. And then in 2000, it became more of people in the community that were seen as a little more unbiased. What ended up happening with that, according to the documents that I've read, is that it never made it to council because the Charter Review Committee couldn't pull it together. Specifically, what I remember reading was what happened was some of the faction wanted a city administrator and some changes. The other faction did not want a city administrator. And so it just kind of went, and no one got to vote on it. That's why I think Mr. Long brought up, and my response was not certainly intended to kick it to this, kick the can down the road. But if we're going to do something like add some other possible charter changes, every charter change you make, if there's two, now you've got confounding variables, you're splitting the voters going, well, I'm for this, but I'm not for that, so I guess I'll vote no on both. So you gotta kind of watch that piece. And I'm not against the Charter Review Committee. That can be something that maybe that we would want to look at. It's just the last time that occurred, that doesn't mean it would again, but the last time that occurred, there was quite a bit of division. And so I think right now you can see there's some division. Not to mention, I think that I'd want to talk more with BPA about how this, even more time would be affecting them negatively. So there's some of those issues too. But I've got your point down, Charter Review Committee.
If we're gonna put it on the ballot, I want everybody to be educated. That's the biggest thing, us, the community, and just make sure everybody knows what they're voting on and what the outcome's gonna be, what the possible outcomes could be.
Yeah. Okay. So thoughts or comments on and this was my final wrap-up question, but thoughts and comments on the proposal within the parameters of that objective and those goals. We've kind of, I think, hit on that now through that process, but I wanted to give people an opportunity to sing out if they're going to say, yeah, this or that about the proposal in and of itself.
I have no comment.
Okay. But you mean no comment beyond what you've already made?
Sure.
Yeah, no, I got you.
I'll tell you what bothers me most, and it's a personal issue, and that is, prime example is Dick and I. We live next door to each other.
Right.
And what this does is at some point, it pits neighbor versus neighbor, and that makes me very uneasy.
You mean when you would potentially run against
Run
him?
against each other.
Oh, I think that's interesting versus,
I'd have the same problem.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Neighbor
that's,
against neighbor.
Because I wouldn't run for council.
yeah, yeah. So, there you go. So, I mean, people need to make choices. People need to make choices.
I
But
understand that.
But I think of my neighbors and my responses, I don't care if they run or not. It's all right by me.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't want this to become personal.
Well, hopefully it's not. By us
Yes.
doing it this way, it's not personal. It was never personal. I think I've said that 100 million times. It's about a governance structure and what's the best for Bryan, not what's the best for any particular individual or any particular entity. What is the best way for Bryan to operate? And I think that debate has gone on for a very long time. Yes, I do. Well, why don't we give it more thought? Is that okay? I got you, Mary, but let's give it more thought, and we'll get Judy's comments the next time, and probably won't take as long. And then, Dick, if you guys want to, I know you're meeting tomorrow, and it's not on the agenda, but if you want to talk about stuff or you get to a point where it's like, hey, we're ready to meet now jointly, just let the mayor know, and then give her some dates, and then we'll accommodate that, and we can meet and jointly discuss this and the other issue. Does that make sense?
Well, it'd just be the one issue.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the one issue you have, it'd be to go over the proposal and the issue that you brought up to me.
Like I say, that other issue's gone away. I don't want to discuss that anymore.
Oh, okay. The one that okay.
That's done.
I'm with you.
Done and over with.
Okay. Good enough. So we would meet and discuss the proposal issue. Okay, gotcha. Sound like a plan? Okay. And thanks for the update. None. Thank you for those comments, and they've been very helpful. The next piece is to go around and any city employees have any comments? BPA? Media? James?
Sure, I'd like to thank everyone who came out last Wednesday for the HGTV picture and video shoot. There was a lot of people, and it was nice to see everybody out there. I'd like to say, look forward to the new police officers, and great job, Mr. Whelan and Mr. Siders. Great proposals, or not proposals, but these presentations, yes. Yes, sorry.
That's all right.
And condolences to Mary and Lori. Thank you.
My condolences to the both of you as well. It's always difficult when you lose a parent. On the subject of the Board of Public Affairs and all of this discussion, trust me, my mind is wide open, my ears are wide open, and I want to hear more. And I'm looking forward to meeting with you and hearing what you have to say on this whole issue and as we move forward. As far as the presentations are concerned, Chief Siders, I cannot express how much I appreciate what you do. You know, and on those cold days when I see the fire trucks going out, I certainly appreciate that we have people who are willing to do those things and to go out and protect us the way that you do. And it's interesting going to the banquet every year and seeing those firefighters there and the passion and the commitment and the camaraderie that they have. It's a special situation. That's a special group of people. Bryan, I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything that you and your department do. And you need to be commended. When we're looking at over 50% of the cost of the work being done is being paid for through grant money, that is something that you deserve a pat on the back, because grants are not easy to get to begin with. There's usually a lot of paperwork that goes along with that, and I want to thank you for that. And as far as your department and the people in your department, when I think about your people, I picture Scott Noble last winter when it was about 0 degrees in a bucket truck working on street lights, and thank God he was willing to do it so that I wouldn't have to. But I certainly appreciate the people that you have and the work that you do, both of you, so thank you.
And I also would like to thank Bryan with the City Engineering Department and also the City of Bryan Fire Department EMS. I actually had to deal with the EMS, not in this area, but in the Eden area, twice in the past 2 weeks. And I have to say that an EMS person, they've got the most patience with what they deal with, and they handle people with kid gloves, and I appreciate that very much. So I do appreciate the fire department and the EMS and the rescue units. Thank you.
Ms. Rhodey?
No, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I would like to thank both the gentlemen tonight that gave their report. They did an outstanding job as usual, and once again, as you all know, we're lucky to have very good department heads in the city. It makes all of our jobs easier, and I appreciate the work that they do and the staff that helps them every day. With that, I think that's...
Okay.
Oh, and I would like to thank everyone for coming out last minute to the HGTV photo. That's a joint project we're working with the utility, and it's been a lot of fun. And tonight, Eric and KB went and took pictures of the theater because the movie theater went ahead and changed their marquee for one day to say HGTV picked Bryan, so it's been fun.
When will that decision be made?
I believe it will be months down the road, but the submission deadline is Friday. So they are doing some quick edits to the video, and it's actually given us a lot of ideas on ways to market Bryan and do extra videos. So Dawn and Eric and Chris and I have gotten together and talked about things like even talking about our tax incentives that we have in the city that people aren't aware of, just informational short videos that we could put out to the public.
Is it?
That's finally it.
Yeah, the only thing I didn't ditto to all what I've heard to date, but the only thing I didn't hear was the chamber banquet. I thought that went very well. It was well attended, and it's always kind of good to chit chat with folk, Bryan people. So kudos to the chamber. And based upon some recent comments, I'd like to take just a couple of minutes, and I've timed this, it really is only 2.5, actually about 2, to clarify some things. One, regarding the concerns that a combined board would negatively impact the payer rates. Mrs. Rohde already addressed this at an October hearing, but it's certainly worth repeating. There is one city budget covering both BMU and the rest of the city departments. Both are currently managed by the city clerk. Enterprise funds are the rates of water, electric, and the communications department set by the BPA, and wastewater and waste disposal rates set by city council. Enterprise funds by state law cannot be commingled with any other funds regardless who is establishing the rates. So for all intents and purposes, a combined board nor a separate board could use electric enterprise funds to buy non-electric expense items, okay? There has been no inappropriate commingling of enterprise funds in any of the Bryan departments, water, electric, communications, wastewater, and waste disposal, as evidenced by our multiple years of clean state audits. Kudos to Ms. Rhodey and her group. So the concern that a combined board would commingle these funds to the detriment of any city department is really not possible. Also, this proposal respects all current BPA and council members' terms of office while providing one entity that will hear, discuss, and decide city administrative and legislative decisions at the same time while communicating the same message to the community and city employees about those decisions. I would encourage all to please feel free to ask your council person any questions, concerns you have. We will either give you the facts or give them or get them for you. The information placed on social media, of which I do not attend, never have and never will. I get all the time, did you see what they said about you on Facebook? No, don't care. So whoever wants to keep posting, I don't see it anyway. No interest. So if you want to get the facts, talk to the council folks. Social media is probably not the best fact checker. I would like all Bryan residents to please keep in mind, and this isn't for me, but all Bryan residents, please keep in mind we can all respectfully and constructively disagree and debate the pros and cons of an issue without attacking each other. Civility will go farther, last longer, and make us all stronger. The proposal is, and will continue to be about which governance structure is best for Bryan. And as I have repeatedly stated, it is irrelevant what I, any of council, any of BPA, or any individual citizens thinks is the best governing structure. Let the people decide. Personally, I'm fine with whatever that outcome is. Thank you. And with that, I want to thank you all for attending the meeting tonight. It's appreciated, as well as your input is appreciated, because I do believe that it does make us a better community. Oh, I got to make a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
John?
Yes. No?
Yep.